I know bushes that get good and tree lines that get good. I flew the drone up in the air because I want to know why those bushes are good. And I kind of learned, oh, well, that one's on a little high spot, or it's on the edge of a creek that's coming out of the back of this bay. So that's actually been very educational for me to figure out, okay, well, if I know they're on these kind of bushes, where are the places that I can run around where those bushes are set up exactly the same way? And so I'm able to just run around and fish all those different places. So that's been one educational thing I've learned on bush flipping, because there's tens of thousands of bushes in this lake, and you can flip 1,000 and never actually be on the right deal. A lot of it has to do with where it is in relation to the main lake, how far back they are maybe in the bays. Sometimes, like when we get to the back of this bay, the water got a lot dirtier. So just the water clarity changing can tell you those are going to be better bushes. So that's been educational for me, to get up and fly above it and look down and go, oh yeah, well, the water's back there. That's why you caught them, because there's a creek that's back there, and so there's more depth back there than the last few that you fished. Or that's one thing you start to learn, is you'll start to actually pattern which bushes, and then when you figure that out, then you can run around and fish the bushes that are sitting on those same deals all over the lake. So when I'm bush flipping, one thing I do, people always ask me about it, is I put a little bead there between the weight, and with a peg on there, I'll just leave like a 1/4 inch of space on the peg. What that does is, normally when I fish a bush or fish these trees, I pitch back in there as far as I can to the root or to the base of the bush, and then I'll be over a limb and I want to pick it up and set it down, pick it up and set it down with that bead on there. You can do the same thing by adding rattles, but I just like the bead because I don't have to fool with putting a rattle in every time I change plastics. But that's just a Strike King Rage bug. I've trimmed it down a little bit because the water's clear. Made it a little smaller profile of natural colors. But every time I pick that lure up and it goes down, and I pick it up and it goes down, that bead clicks against the weight. I don't know if you can hear that. So it's constantly click, 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 click. And then when it's real muddy, I like that, because I think sometimes you'll pitch in a bush and maybe he's on the other side of the bush, and it takes him a second to kind of get oriented where that noise is, and he comes around and he finds you. And then, so you'll pick it up 6, 8 times, you'll go to pick it up and it's just heavy. If you'll just hold it there, if you're not sure, usually if you'll just hold it for a second, he'll move, and that's when you just get after him. But no, I like that little bead. That's just something easy I've always done. Doesn't interfere with any of the rigging. Like I say, you just slide the peg up a little bit so the weight has a little bit of move where it can knock against it. So my basic setup's a 1/2 ounce VMC weight. I believe those are Vike beads. You can get them on Tackle Warehouse. Usually a VMC or a Trocar flipping hook with a plastic keeper, and then a Strike King Rage bug. So that's a pretty simple setup. You don't have to, I don't change much from that, other than I'll change maybe the color of the plastics. Sometimes I'll add a punch skirt on there, like I'll use like something like a Jinko Creature Weight that has a collar on it, and I can add a skirt to it. That just gives me a bulkier, like a jig profile, but it's still real streamlined, and it'll go in and out of those bushes real easy without ever getting hung up. So you can make a lot of flips with that and not have to worry about your lure getting stuck in the bush. Usually when I pitch in there, it's so streamlined and I'm done. I've fished it or lifted it up and down several times. Then I'll just point my rod at the bait and I'll just reel, and you can usually just reel it up out through the branches and it comes right back to you, instead of like trying to jerk it and snatch it out of there. That's what usually gets you hung. When you jerk and pop your rod, what'll happen is the bait will come up and it'll spin around a branch, and that's how you, 9 times out of 10, that's how you get hung. So that saves you a lot of aggravation with a flipping bait. Just use something real streamlined. You can see I cut the sides down, cut the little appendages off the side. That's just so it'll go in and out of the bush real easy. So I take a lot of people flipping, and it's usually people that don't fish all the time, so they tend to get frustrated with it, because it can be frustrating. I mean, you've got gnarly cover and you're having to get your bait in and out of a whole bunch of bushes, and so you look at the same thing all day. But a couple of tips I give you to make flipping less frustrating is you need to learn to, don't bring this much line down all the way to the reel. You want to bring it where you can just barely get it with the other hand. That allows you to dip your rod, and then you can swing the bait low. And swinging the bait low does a couple things. One, it'll land in there quiet, which is what you want, especially if you're flipping into super shallow water or it's not very muddy. You don't want to spook the fish if he's laying up there in a bush that's in shallow water. You dip your rod, you keep it low. It also lets you get under the cover. You see there's little openings in those bushes, but they're underneath them. So you need to be real low to the water to get in there tight to the bush. And then the last thing I tell you is a lot of people when they're flipping, they want to get up really close so that they don't have to flip as far. I actually try to stay back away from the cover, and usually that's because you'll see as it's flooded, there's these trees hanging out. When you get in close, you end up, when you go to swing the bait out there, you swing up and now you've handcuffed yourself. You're constantly hitting the trees above you. Then you start having to try to do all these weird little sideways things to swing under stuff. Kind of takes away your accuracy. So I kind of stay back from the cover, away from the trees, and then pitch it up there real quiet. But that's some of what I would recommend, because I know that, you know, you go all day, flipping all day, you want to make as many accurate presentations as you can. You want to get back in the cover and not be afraid to throw it in the cover. You get that big hook buried in the plastic, and that's the other thing I would say is to, you know, constantly check and make sure your hook's in there good, that it's not poking out the other side. That'll grab in the cover and you'll end up being hung up a lot more. So, you know, check your bait every couple of pitches, make sure the hook's not exposed, and make low shots to the targets. That lets it land quiet and soft, and you'll be able to get it in there in a lot more places where the fish are and not spook them and get a lot more bites.